The Spirit is Too Blunt an Instrument by Anne Stevenson appeared in her 1969 collection Reversals. Stevenson married 3 times over the course of her life, which left her with a sense of disillusionment with regard to her previously held romantic ideals, admitting that "it took me 2 unhappy marriages and 3 children to make me reconsider my assumptions." This poem, which is somewhat clinical in tone, seems to reflect this rejection of human emotions as a force for good. It details the speaker's sense of wonder at the complex processes of the creation of a human being as she gazes down at a baby, presumably in her arms. She argues that it is impossible for the human spirit to have been instrumental in its formation, as the fine precision required to construct its microscopically small structures is the antithesis of what she sees as the crudeness, clumsiness, and messiness of the human passions. She first invites the reader to observe and imagine the perfection of the baby's delicate yet resilient anatomical structures, and then challenges them to name any human passion or feeling which has even an ounce of the accuracy required to achieve the same. It seems as though the speaker would like to dispense with human emotions altogether. But what she seems to overlook, however, is that, in the absence of clinical procedures such as IVF and artificial insemination, facets of the human spirit, such as love and passion, are essential for the biological processes of procreation to be kick-started in the first place through the sexual act. In fact, it's the combination of the engineering miracle that is our bodies with the imperfections of our emotions that makes us uniquely human. Without these passions, the human body becomes a mere inventory of anatomical components, as exhibited in the poem, which functions rather than lives. The poem comprises 3 stanzas of 9 lines each. It's written in free verse, which means that it has no rhyme scheme and no set bass meter or metrical pattern. Stevenson instead makes extensive use of enjambment and caesura throughout to modulate the rhythm, creating moments of ebb and flow. Although all 3 stanzas are end-stopped, the stanzas acting in a similar way to paragraphs, where the speaker's focus shifts to a new thought at the beginning of each. Line breaks are judiciously or thoughtfully applied to give prominence to certain words and images. Stevenson also creates musicality and a sense of rhythm through complex sound patterning, especially of nasal n and m sounds, as well as plosive b and t and guttural k sounds, which, when interwoven, dictate that they be very precisely articulated, perhaps reflecting the precision that Stevenson sees in the anatomy of the human body. There's also extensive use of terminology relating to human anatomy, such as bones, tendons, knee, knucklebone, ganglia, vertebrae, spine, eyelashes, fingernails, ear, ossicles, capillaries, lungs, neural filaments, and brain, which appears in lists that tend to be asyndetic, suggesting that the speaker's examples are not meant to be exhaustive, thus evoking the idea that she sees the body as being home to infinite marvels. Stevenson also employs a number of words which form overlapping semantic fields of smallness and complicatedness, such as intricate, particulars, exacting, tiny, fine, involutions, complexity, miniature, minute, and infinitesimal, and words which form a semantic field of human emotions such as spirit, passions, sentiment, desire, affection, vagaries of the mind, love, despair, anxiety, and pain. Stevenson's diction tends to be quite formal and complex, which adds to the poem's clinically emotionless and exacting tone. The title, "The Spirit is Too Blunt an Instrument," is taken from the poem's first line and contains a striking metaphorical image. The fact that it is only half of the poem's first sentence creates a sense of mystery, as the reader is left unaware of what the spirit is too blunt an instrument for. The poem begins, "The spirit is too blunt an instrument to have made this baby." The mystery is solved as we realise that the poem's subject matter will be the miracle that is the creation of life. The assertion that the speaker makes here is also blunt and unyielding, as she communicates that she has already made up her mind, setting the tone that this poem is less an exploration and more some kind of manifesto. The poet uses the metaphor of an instrument here to create an image of the baby as something which is crafted. Note the predominant consonants of the nasal n and plosive t sounds in the first line, which help to enhance the poet's sense of certainty. The adjective "this," which is used to identify something that is specific and close at hand, suggests that the speaker is gazing down at a baby as she cradles it in her arms. She continues, indicating that she will use the evidence of the baby in front of her to back up her claim. Nothing so unskilful as human passions could have managed the intricate, exacting particulars. Here she argues that human passions, or the strong emotions that command our behaviours, are just too unskilful or clumsy to engineer the fine details which are complex and demanding in their construction. The colon here creates a caesura, or midline pause, and indicates the beginning of an asyndetic list, the items of which are separated by commas, and which takes up the remainder of the first stanza. These intricate, exacting particulars are the tiny blind bones with their manipulating tendons, the knee and knuckle bones. A tendon is the strong tissue attaching muscle to a bone, and is what enables the otherwise blind bones to be articulated or linked and physically manoeuvred, such as at the knee and knuckle bones, allowing the leg and the hand to bend and curl, and suggest the way in which a baby bends and flexes its legs when on its back, and how it curls its fingers around those of an adult. Note how Stevenson's form here reflects and strengthens her meaning, where the alliteration of the plosive b in blind bones, picked up in the next line in knuckle bones, and the consonants of the nasal n in tiny blind bones, manipulating tendons, and knee and knuckle bones, forces the words to be articulated, or spoken, very precisely. Observing these legs and hands leads her to consider the central structure that allows them to operate. The resilient fine meshings of ganglia and vertebrae, the chain of the difficult spine. Ganglia are structures containing nerve cell bodies, and vertebrae are the small bones forming the spine. Everything is meshed or intricately and irrevocably connected, she argues. The difficult spine is resilient yet fine, simultaneously tough and delicate, a complicated web of nerves and bones. The second stanza begins in the imperative mood as the speaker commands the reader to look closely, to observe the distinct eyelashes and sharp crescent fingernails. Even the smallest of details have been fashioned meticulously down to each individual eyelash, each defined half-moon of the fingernails, communicated by the adjectives distinct and sharp crescent, and the shell-like complexity of the ear, with its firm involutions concentric in miniature to minute ossicles. She likens the intricacy of the ear to a shell, the word involutions suggesting not only the way in which the structure curls inwards, but also its state of being complicated. while the adjective firm echoes the resilience she describes in the previous stanza. The adjective concentric refers to shapes which have a common centre, and alludes to these structures which all circle the ear canal at their heart, which in turn leads inwards to the minute ossicles, or tiny bones of the middle ear. Note, in another instance of form reflecting meaning, that these first 5 lines get progressively shorter, with the sentence in line 5 finishing on the single word ossicles, before the caesura. The form of these lines visually echoing their sense of the elements of the ear curling inwards as they too get progressively smaller. Using the ear canal as a point of entry into the inner workings of the body, Stevenson commands the reader to imagine, once more using the imperative mood, the microscopically sized yet perfect internal elements that allow us to live and breathe. The infinitesimal capillaries, the flawless connections of the lungs, the invisible neural filaments through which the completed body already answers to the brain, which cannot be seen with the naked eye. Infinitesimal capillaries are the minute blood vessels connecting the arteries to the veins, while the invisible neural filaments are the slender, thread-like nerve fibres through which messages travel from the brain to the rest of the body, controlling its functioning. The poet uses the 3rd stanza to come to the crux, or pivotal and decisive point, of her argument. The speaker challenges the reader to then name any passion or sentiment possessed of the simplest accuracy. In stark contrast, there is not one human emotion which has a fraction of the accuracy or precision required for this fine work. Emotions are instead rough, clumsy, and messy. The exclamation "no" is assertive, emphasising that no desire or affection could have done with practice what habit has done perfectly, indifferently, through the body's ignorant precision. Note how Stevenson contrasts the idea of something which is achieved through conscious practice with that of habit, an acquired behaviour pattern which has been followed for so long that it has become involuntary or unconscious. She argues that the elegance and precision of the human body is achieved precisely because the biological processes underpinning it are indifferent or emotionless, and ignorant or unaware. She finishes the poem with the bleak assertion that it is left to the vagaries of the mind to invent love and despair and anxiety and their pain. The term vagaries refers to the unpredictable or whimsical actions of the mind, the element in a conscious being which is able to reason, think, feel, want, etc. These, she argues, are the antithesis of the perfection and order of unconscious biological processes. It is left up to these imperfect and chaotic processes to invent, in the sense of to make up or fabricate, human emotion. Note how love is linked only to negative emotions through the use of polysyndeton in the final 2 lines. Love and despair and anxiety and their pain, and suggests the speaker's sense of disillusionment. Gone is the infinite wonder of the previous lines communicated by the asyndetic lists. Here, the polysyndeton instead communicates the speaker's belief that love is a negative emotion which inevitably leads to heartache. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments section below and I'll do my best to answer them. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more videos on English language topics and exam techniques and English literature texts.